You know, something I literally didn't realize until today, and I don't know how, is that the line sequel episode titles are actually relevant. I somehow never realized that. Even though it's kind of obvious, because the second one is line to the movie or whatever, and they go to the movies. The third one is straight to DVD, and he watches a VHS. And now the fourth one is line for alternate ending, and it kind of fits.
I literally never thought about it, but I did notice this one at the end of the episode. It's like, alternate ending. Oh, I see. Because we find out, like, what Steven might have been if he was a girl. Ah.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So this episode, Steven re-watches the videotape Rose left for him, trying to decipher any hidden clues or anything she might have left for him. Lion, meanwhile, coughs out a giant key, as you do, and Steven and Lion head out to find where it goes. They go to various familiar locations, but none of them seem to have the lock it goes to. But then Lion takes them through a long trek into the desert. They seem to have finally found the lock and the door. He uses the key and goes inside, but mostly it just seems to be random junk rather than anything super significant to his destiny. But he does find a tape for someone named Nora. Steven thinks this might have been for his sister he never knew about. Lion then takes them to find Greg at Beach City on top of a hill practicing his guitar. He remembers the tape and decides to show Steven it. It is simply the name and tape for if Steven was a girl. Steven wonders the significance of all this, but Greg explains that Rose never expected Steven to be anything but himself. And this helps him, somewhat at least. And that's basically it.
It's a pretty sweet episode because it's been building for a while, Steven's concern about just all this responsibility Rose left on his shoulders for the rose quartzes, for the crystal gems. I mean, might be some responsibility for the rose quartzes that were bubbled at the zoo, I don't know. But, you know, responsibility for the crystal gems, responsibility for the war that she left behind, you know. And he's trying to figure out what he's supposed to do and if she left. He wants to know what he's supposed to do, basically. He's lost about what he's supposed to do, and he really wants her to have left him the key. Because, like, it's a hell of a situation for a kid to figure out. But it's kind of but, you know, the moral of the episode kind of averts in that she didn't leave this big secret Grandmaster plan. She didn't have Steven as part of a big secret Grandmaster plan. He's not a pawn in any of that. He just exists, and what that means is up to him. Which I think ultimately is actually pretty damn sweet, because it can be like, a lot of kids are under pressure from their parents who expect them, who have high expectations of them, who want them to be, you know, want them to be a great doctor or a lawyer or a politician or something, and get their life kind of shaped by the pressure of those expectations and desperately trying to live up to them. I think it's kind of sweet for Steven to find out that he's already enough as he is just by existing.
Yeah.
I mean, he has still inherited this intergalactic war to deal with. That is still very much a thing.
Yeah.
But I remember this is an anime trope that bugs me. I think it especially came up in Inuyasha, where like every extra anime bit seemed to have left this like elaborate puzzle that had been left for Inuyasha and Sesshomaru by their father to teach them some deep moral lesson. Like, this dude apparently spent, you know, however long he spent dying, bleeding to death, coming up with all these elaborate moral lessons for his sons. You know, it's an anime show that kind of bugs me. It's like, what? How much time did you spend? How did you come up with all of this? What are you doing? And in this case, it's, you know, Rose Quartz hasn't left anything as elaborate as that. She just had Steven, not for any greater plan, not for any greater purpose, purely because she wanted to have Steven.
Yes.
And I also very strongly feel like that is really the best and only reason you should have kids. Because I know a lot of people who had a lot of issues with their parents because their parents had them not because they wanted to have kids, but because they thought it was expected of their station in life, or because they were trying to keep up with siblings who were having kids, or, a couple cases of mums who had kids because they thought it would get their boyfriend to stay with them or leave his wife for them or whatever. All those are bad reasons for having kids, and they always wind up with the parent taking it out on the kid. Whereas Rose and Greg just wanted to have Steven. And that's quite lovely.
I don't feel like I have much to add about this episode, to be honest. It kind of just... I'm not saying this is a criticism of the episode, but the episode doesn't have too much worth for the audience. It's only for the character. Like, the audience doesn't really learn anything from this episode. Like, cause I think most people could kind of get that Rose probably isn't thinking of some grand plan in the long term for Steven. So this is just confirmation of that.
Yeah, it's a strong character moment for Steven. It doesn't necessarily unfold anything in terms of the plot. It is interesting to find out Rose had a desert castle, but there's kind of nothing left of it but garbage. Oh.
Honestly, I feel like the most interesting thing about this episode is because of what happens after this episode.
Yeah, basically.
So that makes an interesting point, or something.
I mean, we can't talk about that yet, but I did spend a good chunk of the episode going, are we finally going to find out what the hell Lion is and how? Because there's still nothing like Lion anywhere in the show. There are no magic... I mean, he doesn't have a gem, but there's no magic animals like Lion anywhere else in the show. And we still don't really learn anything new about him. We do get it highlighted to us that there's a treasure chest in his magical nth dimension mane that we don't find out what's in it.
And we still don't know what's inside.
And yeah, Rose had a desert castle, apparently. But especially because of certain events that happened after this episode, I feel like everything that's happened in this episode must have some strong significance. Like, there's probably a ton of significance in all the junk that was in that desert castle. There's probably a lot of significance to why Lion ran there for ages instead of warping directly there. Like, we're going to find out in 3 seasons' time what the significance of all of that is.
Yes.
The silhouette shot of Lion running across the desert with Steven on his back was kind of gorgeous, by the way.
Yeah. Though it's also one of those things where, like, it's a bit over dramatic the way he's thinking about all the gems, and I'm like, Steven, you're not dying. It's just really hot. It's okay. Lion is not going to kill you.
No. Also, I have to say, when I first saw the video for Nora, my very first thought was was Nora like an ex-girlfriend of Rose's or something?
That would be something.
I mean, could have been.
It could have
also, when Steven was like, oh my god, do I have a sister? My first thought was the Rose-looking girl that Pearl got the phone number from. But then my next thought was, it's literally impossible for Steven to have a sister due to the nature of how he was born.
Yes.
So, no. And it was kind of sweet to realize just the video was, they had recorded 2 videos because they didn't know if they were having a boy or a girl, so they didn't know if it was going to be Nora or Steven. So. And it was kind of sweet when, we looked away from the video and saw that Greg was kind of smiling but crying just from seeing Rose. I'm like, oh, Greg. Steven's moment of, I'm my mom and my sister!
that was funny. What kind of destiny is this? A valid question.
I mean, I'm a big fan of stories where the idea of destiny is all tied up in the characters actually having agency. So, this video doesn't have the big secret to Steven's destiny, except that his destiny is up to him. And whatever he does,
yes,
he'll be already, fulfilling Rose Quartz's dreams just by existing and choosing his own path. And again, I think that's a lovely message for kids.
I distinctly remember that was Connie who first brought up the idea that Steven has some sort of magical destiny. The more I think about it, why did she think that?
Because she's a fantasy novel nerd. She knows she's hanging out with the protagonist of a fantasy story, well, technically sci-fi. I remember seeing, way back during season 2, a popular poster at Steven Universe was that the biggest plot twist of Steven Universe is that it's a sci-fi. Because I forget about it now this far into the show, but early on, I think it was ages before we even knew that the gems were aliens. And not just, magical girls. But yeah,
yes.
Connie's a fantasy nerd. She knows she's hanging out with the protagonist, so she's pretty sure he's gotta have a magical destiny. But it's just, and maybe he does have a magical destiny, but that's entirely up to him. I think it also adds a lot more depth to then any cool magical shit Steven does henceforth on, because he's not doing it because he's doing magical cool shit because he wants to, because he chooses to. That's how cool of a dude Steven is.
I did love how he was putting his attempt to put the first letter of each sentence together. It must mean, I biddy Asia. Does that mean I have to go back to Asia and bite something?
Yeah, Korea didn't end well.
No. Mainly because Greg realized that he's a cartoon.
Yeah. Oh god, Greg's existential dread in the Steven Universe studio.
Yes. Though the best, I think my favorite part were, of course, the answers were inside me the whole time, and he just pokes his head hard with the kid, he just falls over.
That's not usual. I mean, he's not wrong. The answers are inside of him, just not the way he thinks.
That was great, just the way his head just almost caved in. It just falls over.
The physical comedy of that moment was perfection.
Another saying that I wanted Steven to just be self-aware, pitiable, is when he says, "This is just a bunch of garbage Mom left behind." Part of me wanted him to say, "Just like me!"
Oh, see, he had this look on his face for half a second where I wondered what he was thinking about the garbage his mum left behind. And it makes me sad now.
I'm way too happy about self-aware, depressing Steven.
His favourite TV show is Crying Breakfast Friends, so...
Yes.
So yeah, this wasn't really a plot episode, but, it'll probably turn out to have been in 4 seasons' time, but it's a really, really good character episode.
Oh, and one last thing, this is relevant to the other episodes, but it's not a spoiler for any of the other episodes. What is with the credits song? I feel like there's a point to it, but it hasn't gotten to it yet.
A couple of the episodes I was watching, cut out exactly where the episode ended without showing the credits, so I think this was one of them.
It's mostly the same.
It's really quiet every time.
Yeah.
It's creepy and unsettling. I mean, Love Like You, if you'd, actually read the lyrics, is kind of a creepy, sad song anyway.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just gonna know just now, but it's it's so depressed. It's if I could begin to be half of what you think of me. Oh, especially the line, I always thought I might be bad, now I'm sure it's true, because I think you're so good and I'm nothing like you. That's so heavy!
Yes.
Children! This is a tiny children's show, and I know it's about war criminals, but...
By the way, it's totally about Rose, right?
I'm pretty sure... I'm reasonably sure...
I'm fairly certain about
it's
this.
meant to be from Rose's perspective.
That song is about Rose.
Yeah.
Or from Rose's perspective, I mean.
Learn to Love Like You does sound like something she'd be singing to Greg. Yes. Learning to care for people the way humans do. But yeah, I'm pretty sure the whole thing is from Rose's perspective. So I don't know if it vanishing is because of that epiphany of Stevens, which is giving him a lot.
Though it should be pointed out that the last time they used it was at the end of season 3, when Steven could no longer think of Rose the same way.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm speculating about credits because I have nothing to say about this episode that we haven't.
And this is also the thing about the show. Speculating about the credits is perfectly valid because Rebecca Shoker has probably hidden significant plot revealers in it.
Yes.
Like, there is nothing, there is again, it's not so much about this episode, but in like 3 episodes' time, you find out there is nothing so minor that it is not a significant plot point in this show.
Yes.
Nothing whatsoever. And it's masterful.
Except for Secret Team. That's still a useless episode. I maintain that.
Fair enough.
Actually, no, to be fair, it's 95% a useless episode. The part at the beginning where they show a bunch of giant gem swords turning into giant hands is giant arms that just disappear. That's foreshadowing. The rest of the episode is useless.
Fair enough.
Fun fact, that's the most highest TV rated episode of the series.
Yay!
Life is unfair.
Ugh.
But yeah, I have nothing else to say. Let's get to the other ones.